So Drury as a communications agency has been talking recently about the importance of communicating at this time, and we thought it would be really interesting to look at the political side of things and how the government has communicated during this crisis. So today I'm talking to Gerry Naughton, who is the Director of Public Affairs at Drury Porter Novelli, and I just want to ask him a couple of questions on government communications during the crisis and get his thoughts on it. So Gerry, as I said, we're here today to talk about communications and political communications in a pandemic. You've been looking over the last few months. So I suppose I just wanted to ask you, what stands out for you in the midst of all of this?
I suppose it's a good time to look at it. It's 3 months since we had the first COVID case in Ireland. It's almost 3 months since we had the first death. And in that time, we have seen, unprecedented restriction on movement, on commerce, on our social lives. And extraordinary, I think, what comes across, and you look at some of the research that's been conducted in this, the public have maintained a very high level of confidence in what's been done and what the government have been doing in that time.
That's great. I agree with you on a lot of that, Gerry. But I wonder, is there an argument to be made that we've been led very much by the public health officials as opposed to the government at the moment, that the health officials have led out rather than the politicians?
I think in a way, the way in which the communications has been structured has been just that. It has been led out by the public health officials. So if you like, the new troika, the health troika of Tony Holohan, Colin Henry and Killian de Gascoigne, supported by a lot of other experts, have been the ones in our TV rooms every night. They've been the ones people have been tuning into. And what they've been doing is giving people facts, figures, data, and the science. And I think the way in which they've done that, they have built up a level of trust in the people in what they are hearing. And I think by separating the political dimension this from the health dimension to it, I think that has stood to the government's communications.
Yeah, so overall, you believe that the government has communicated effectively and clearly, and they've been transparent throughout the course of the pandemic, that they've brought everybody.
I think if you look at what the health, public health officials particularly have been doing is, every night they've brought us the raw data, and they've given us the latest science. And I think more importantly, they've told us what they know and they've told us what they don't know. And I think that's crucial. If you want to build trust with people, don't pretend you know everything. Be actually honest and upfront with people. And I think the public respond to that. I think that's been a crucial part of the response to the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a general sense that the government has done well and people by and large are quite happy with them. But I mean, you paint a really positive picture, but surely not everything has gone right. We've had 1,600 deaths, majority of them really sadly in long stay settings. We had the controversy with healthcare staff crying out for PPE. It hasn't all been rosy.
Absolutely. And I think the dilemma here, and if you look at those things you quoted, the death rates, the difficulty of PPE, they are problems that people have had around the world. And when you look at the communications on that, for example, on PPE, I think the HSE have been very upfront and honest when we just don't have PPE. The difference, I think, here is in terms of getting people's trust and buy-in, is that the government, if you look at the UK or you look at the US, you have seen the communications led by the politicians, supported at the same event by the health experts. Here we have separated the two. Health experts give you the facts and the data. The politicians give you the political response. And those set pieces, I think, have been well done and well managed. When you put that combination together, I think people have far more confidence. Of course, not everything has gone right. Of course, there are lessons to be learned. But the real villain here is COVID-19. And that's what the government, I think, collectively and the people collectively have been fighting.
So we've covered off the role of the government and their communications. I want to talk to you about the opposition. Do you think that they are wrong to raise issues and to hold the government to account? Obviously, that's what the Dáil is for. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on how you believe they've performed.
Absolutely. Look, that is their job. And politics of its nature is adversarial. And, the meat and drink of politics is conflict, questioning, exposure. I think the challenge for the opposition during a pandemic is it's a national interest. People wear the green jersey. People get behind the public health message. And I think the opposition have done that and have done that responsibly. Of course, they have to ask questions, they have to raise issues. But by and large, I think they have behaved very responsibly and very reasonably. I mean, I cannot think of 3 months in Irish politics when no minister has been called on to resign. And that's just a mark of, in a sense, the constructive role that the opposition have played during this pandemic.
I suppose the next thing I want to talk to you about is, we're starting to see evidence, either anecdotally or maybe through some pieces of research, that people are now starting to break the guidelines, that they're maybe not being as adherent to them as they had been before. Do you think gradually solidarity is starting to break down, and do you think there's a communications issue in this, or is that just something that the media are reporting on that might not necessarily be the case?
I think what's really interesting is, and I've heard Tony Holland talk about this, they talk about this anticipatory behaviour where the people are ahead of where the public health officials of the government are. And that certainly happened on the way into lockdown, where people were locking down in advance. There's probably an element now of people are breaking out a little bit ahead of the restrictions. But look, we don't live in a totalitarian state. We don't live in a police state. This has always been only possible with the goodwill and support of people. And I think that's what that high level of support I mentioned, which has been tracked by Mark and tracked by other companies, showing consistently 80% of people support the restrictions, support social distancing. Okay, it will ease up, but I think by and large, a vast majority of people are behind the current plan.
As Irish people, we all feel quite proud of the fact that we've been very compliant. For the most part, people have really done what they've been asked to do. And as you say, they were sort of doing it before they were asked to do it. I just wonder, like, just getting back to the health officials and the political side of things, do you think the economy can stick with public health advice only, or do you think that we might start to see a break away from that in the next few weeks?
That's clearly where the pressure is coming, because those most affected, if you're a publican, a hotelier, a hairdresser, your employment is gone, you're concerned for it. They're the people. I understand why they would like to see a quicker release from the lockdown. But the reality is the public health advice that we all accepted and believed in March and April, they're the same people giving us the advice today. So I think it kind of, we all really have to go with that advice, even if it takes another few weeks. There would be nothing worse, I think, than opening up too fast and then having to go back and close down again. Now, it may well change, the public advice may well change, but I think by and large, we're hearing you hear a lot in the media now from groups like those who want to do things quicker. I think there is still a vast majority of people who are in tune with the advice and are happy to stick with the advice for the moment.
So I suppose your view is that overall, I'm sure you think the government has made mistakes here or there, but for the most part that they've been very successful in how they've communicated in the midst of this crisis, and they've kept people calm and they've brought people along with them. I guess just from the point of view of, if you were speaking to clients, is there anything in particular that stands out to you that you believe that people should be doing within their own businesses and their own organizations when they're trying to communicate with their own stakeholders or customers?
I'd say there's probably three. I think one is to structure your communications. Government, whether by design or by accident, they structured it in this way where they separated the facts, the health facts and data from the political decisions. So think about how you would structure your communication, how you organize it. Secondly, don't be afraid to tell people what you don't know. I think people respect you much more if you tell them what you know and what you don't know. And the third is discipline. If you have a message, if you have a story, maintain that discipline. If you chop and change at the first wave of first bit of opposition, people lose confidence. So I think they would be the three lessons I would be advising people coming out of this pandemic.
Okay, super. That's great. Thanks a million.
Thank you.